thesis. My working title is The Socio-Spatial and Sustainable Conditions of Migrant Workers in Dongguan. I've separated my research into three parts. First being on urban growth, looking at the evolution, pathways, and patterns of urbanization and industrialization in the Pearl River Delta, specifically in Shenzhen and Dongguan. And then the second part is on the environmental degradation, the industrial waste, wastewater and air pollution, in addition to urban density and overcrowding in these two cities. And the third part is looking at the socio-spatial conditions of these two cities and the impact on the quality of life of the migrant workers. These two are more qualitative. I've been looking at statistics, maps, and reports. And then the third part is more qualitative, ethnographies, surveys, and personal journals. Just to place yourself where the Pearl River Delta is, it's right here, and a couple of major cities for your reference. These are the 9 cities that are immediately lining the delta. And for my study, I am focusing only on Dongguan and Shenzhen as a horizontal analysis. And here's a map of the number of United States manufacturing plants. In the blow-up here, this is Dongguan and this is Shenzhen, and there's an average of about 150 to 200 manufacturing plants in that area. And then looking at the environmental degradation, the highest is water pollution and air pollution in those two cities. And just some facts about pollution in China. About 300 million rural Chinese lack in access to safe drinking water, and approximately 50% of the cities in China do not meet drinking water standards. And for the Pearl River Delta region in 2007, there was a 75.7 day average of haze. And these next maps are of urbanization and industrial growth in the two cities. This is Dongguan and this is Shenzhen, taken from Google Earth. And it starts with 1979, which is when the open door policy was implemented in China, where trade was open to the outside world. So starting with 1979 to 1990, 2000, 2003, and there is a big jump here from 2000 to 2003. It's probably because Google Earth just didn't document those years in Dongguan. Yes.
Do you know what you're measuring?
Yeah, so I looked at the amount of paper space versus green area on the map.
So when something goes from black to white, what is it?
When it goes from white to black, that means it's been built over and there's usable space.
Impervious surfaces.
Like more than 50% impermeable, more than 70%?
I don't have those numbers. This was taken from Google Earth. I haven't found a specific resource that I can find those exact numbers yet. And then 3, 8, and 2012 as of now. And then population density map of the two cities. And as I've been looking into an environmental policy, I came across Kristen's curve, which is a graphical representation of when a country develops, the inequality rises, and at the tipping point, driven by market forces, income per capita grows and then inequality decreases with this curve. And in 1991, the environmental Kristen's curve was introduced. It is charting, instead of inequality in general, it's environmental degradation, pollution against income per capita. And then it's split into the three phases of industry, pre-industrial, and then post. And with my readings on Shenzhen, this is my projected curve for the city. And I looked at the GDP for 3 decades in Shenzhen, and then I mapped it along this curve. And then also for Dongguan, and you can see that Shenzhen grew a little more at a steady pace versus Dongguan at a more rapid pace in these 2 decades.
How do you determine, for instance, Shenzhen is sort of going toward like this measure? What's the,
Measurement?
or what's the qualifier, what makes something in its relative?
Through the services, through the 3 kinds of industries, primary being agricultural, secondary, manufacturing, and then tertiary, which is services. So when you get to here, it's about services instead of manufacturing.
Okay, and that was, and you were showing that, but didn't explain it on the
Oh, yeah.
previous.
On the previous slide. And then the 2 cities mapped together. So with this increase of foreign investments and industries, there's a parallel in the increase of migrant workers to the region. And of the 1.3 billion population in China, 103 million are migrant workers. And here's just a breakdown of the different types of jobs that they have. And some percentages of their local intra and interprovincial migration. And of course, local to urban migration is at 50% versus the low 5% of urban to rural. And this is for China altogether, not just for my 2 cities. So I can find that information. And then migration patterns from 1990 to 1995. They're coming from the rural areas to these coastal cities. And then 95 to 2000, just an increase in the numbers to the Delta region. And then 2000 to 2005. And this is the information that I've extracted from some of the ethnographies and surveys that I've been reading. The Worker Happiness Index, which for the China Labor Bulletin was measuring the balance of stress in the workplace versus in their homes. And the 2 cities I'm looking at, Dongguan and Shenzhen, are actually at the bottom of this index. And then just looking at living area and housing inequalities for these migrant workers. Some images. This is factory, a dormitory in Shenzhen, outside, inside, factory dormitory versus local residents. And then this is an image of migrant workers that are not living in the dormitory, and these are just their makeshift housing quarters. So my hypothesis is if Dongguan can avoid following the curve of Shenzhen as they are coming to this tipping point of environmental awareness, and how design and planning can intervene and induce a quicker dropping curve towards their post-industrial economy. Yeah.
So tell me, like what, like it's super early on, you have like a lot of possibility in front of you. What do you want to, and it could be a huge project, right? I mean, a lot going on.
Yeah, so can we site planning policy, are you talking about?
Yeah, what do you want to get out of it?
Um,
Like what is the objective at the end of the year? What kind
mentioned, what I'm actually drawn to right now is migrant worker housing, but as I read into it, there's probably some policy and overall site plan.
The migrant worker housing, whether it's a design convention or a proposal or a policy
Yes.
proposal. Okay, is that pretty clear? Like in your own mind, is that pretty clear, or do you think maybe that and do something else?
Right now, that is what is clear, but now in 3 or 4 weeks. But that's what I feel right now.
Okay.
Did you look at other models other than this one? Can you talk a little bit about why you chose this model? And also, I guess as you sort of develop this, you'll want to maybe thicken it a little bit because you seem to sort of accept this model as somewhat of a kind of like empirically correct model, which, you know, it's obviously one of many models one could presume. And so it's a long way of saying basically as you develop the project, you should look at other ways of qualitatively analyzing your subject so that you're not just sort of basing all your intervention on this kind of tipping point, which at least to me, who I don't know the model well, it seems highly abstract, very speculative as a model, and also, you know, I don't know, are these points actually, do they correspond to some numbers, or are they conjectural, you know, that 2010 goes about here and 2000 goes about here. So I guess maybe just talk a little bit about why you picked this one in particular.
This is the second, one of the first two that I looked at, and I did think about looking at a couple others, but I haven't gotten to it yet. That is something I would get to. And this, I just didn't put the numbers in, but I do have a scale of how I put these dots on for each, so there is an incremental.
And just to follow up on that question, and so you did that analysis on the difference between L1 and Cambridge?
Yeah, so I looked at the statistical yearbook of China, and for these two cities, and I mapped them on the curve.
So looking at things like industrialization,
GDP.
factors, like sectors like over time, things like that, and you look at Shenzhen and you're like, oh, it looks like it's tipping towards service industries.
Yeah, there are numbers, there's a percentage that they gave, and then some of it I took a little liberty because there was information missing. But this is what I could put on the chart to the best of my knowledge.
I guess my question is, it seems like all of the analysis that you've done is pretty, I mean, it's very thorough, and even if we're sort of questioning certain beliefs that you made, it's, you know, it's pretty clear, but it's also very macro. And I guess my question for you, I mean, it goes back to Kian's original question, which is, like, how do you get to this type of research, which is hyper macro to the scale of migrant housing, and what does, you know, maybe this environmental Kuznets curve doesn't necessarily lead you to housing. Maybe the other one does. You know, if you're looking at inequality, maybe there's a way at the scale of housing to chip away at issues of inequality, but I don't quite see myself how a project that would end up at migrant housing could attack this. To me, maybe that's more, as you said, maybe it's more sort of policy questions or sort of broader zoning questions or site planning questions on the scale of the city.
Yeah, I would say like this is very good stuff to situate some of the contextual issues of where China and this particular region of China is. I mean, to be like honestly, what you've shown us so far, although actually very well documented in like graphic views, right, which I very much appreciate, it's not something that will surprise any of us, right? Like who are even like the most sort of basic inkling of situations on the ground in Shenzhen or in Guangdong. So in order to but it's not seeming to follow the perspective model, because there's a lot of debate right now whether China is particularly unique and like unique condition, or whether it's kind of part of a larger trend. And I think for you to nail that down on how others are thinking about that would enable you to look at Shenzhen and Dongguan and trace the contact curve if it's useful to you. Maybe a little more like taking leaps, right? Basing this off of people's arguments about overdevelopment, which probably a lot of research. Think about this. And when you want, I think what you want to do though, you want to drill down into the migrant worker situation. I think you're going to really have a contextual, what you've done at this level on some specific, more local levels, like different aspects of migrant worker housing, eventually relative to the kinds of industries, like industrial manufacturing or service industries, which we may be linked to. I mean, one thing that would be interesting is looking at how it goes from industrial development to service sector development. How does that shift migrant work housing? Migrant work housing thus far has been mostly associated with manufacturing centers. So maybe that allows you an opportunity to think about how migrant worker housing is potentially at a tipping point because economic sectors. Another thing to maybe be a little more firm about is actually this idea of urbanization. I think while impressive, the maps showing like serious urbanization over time, I think you have an opportunity to actually interrogate what that means more. Going from completely white to completely black. When most, it's not a very meaningful thing if you're going to be looking at things don't really work out that way, right? Like it's not that you go through an unorganized space and suddenly you can start happening. There are processes at work that maybe you can try to delineate more. What are the specific processes of urbanization that are causing migration and maybe the construction of vast amounts of worker housing? And could these processes be sites where I can get some more small-scale action on where I want to focus, where you want to
I'll say something. I've started to work with them. I think that the Kuznets curve is just a point of departure. I mean, this is not going to be a social science oriented thesis. It's going to be a design thing. The hypothesis, right, which is, and I may misunderstand it, but as I thought I understood was, here's Shenzhen, which is going through, went through a rapid process of urbanization, and is now starting to, if you believe Kuznets, starting to worry about quality of life issues, worrying about pollution, worrying about environmental stewardship. Here's the next province that's way behind, but catching up. It's going through the first part of this rapid urbanization where concerns about environment is not key. Can, through intervention, can that value change start to happen earlier? That's why I think the question here. Right? It's not about trying to understand all these perspectives. Can, in this, Shenzhen did that. The next one is coming. Can you adjust the rate at which other values besides, manufacturing or rapid urbanization, can other values start to occur earlier in the development of the second city? That's what you're trying to get at, right?
Through the lens of migrant workers.
Through the lens of migrant workers, or the quality of their
Migrant
life.
housing.
Yeah.
Because I think migrant workers and migrant housing
Yeah.
are actually two
Yes,
different.
I think it's the quality of life for migrant workers, not just this,
Yeah.
which is different than why they come there, whether they become now cleaners versus manufacturer assistants, or domestic help versus widget makers, right? Yeah. So the quality of life.
Exactly. I think that if your title says migrant workers, not migrant housing, I think that if you take migrant workers as part of our thesis, it's a much more dynamic situation. And you're going to end up with a much more dynamic design and not housing project. You have to be careful that you don't just somehow iterate a new form of housing that actually doesn't contribute to that larger discussion. The migrants themselves, I think, have their patterns and the way that they work into that urbanization, that spread, and how they move around based on how something is urbanized is key to figuring out how they can adapt to basically to the trend. And so the first slide actually, you sort of line it up as linear, but it's actually how those three things work together. I think that'll unlock something really interesting. How migrant workers adapt to urbanization, for instance. They have to move as urbanization goes up.
At one point, their expectations about their own quality of life or the environment begin to change.
Right. Within that moment of transition.
It makes me really curious too about, I mean, when people talk about migrant workers and not about migrant housing, it is much more interesting because then I start to think about, well, like at what point do they really set down stakes and is there a family involved? And so, like all of a sudden, it's not about housing, it's about education, it's about all these other things, and then it turns on like, and then kind of quality of life is hyper to the work that you do. So, I mean, maybe it's a matter of more first, just like doing a little bit more investigation, demographically, not in terms of charts, but in terms of just trying to figure out how do people live and how does that change as you're moving along this, whether or not you stay with it because that's curve is it's kind of it's a moot point, but as you're moving from manufacturing to service, what does that look like?
I would say also, we think there is like a correspondence between these curves and the spatial conditions of these already grown cities. Because I think it's like part of your research. I think here is like maybe too wide and too generic. So maybe just making it more connected, this idea of the housing or what has happened in other cities that you are in research, and like I suppose that would be good for the next step of your research.
When you go back to the urbanized black blobs, I mean, I think it's also really challenging the scale that you're working at, and of course getting accurate figures on that. And to what extent to help you break this down a little bit more, which will answer some more spatial questions rather than getting wrapped up in doing like the curve analysis again.
What means this curve if you this idea of the social spatial conditions?
To the growth, I think, to the growth you just showed. And maybe you can do that rather than doing it across this whole region in a kind of transect that has that pattern, sort of facing from this. Or maybe it's as these two meet, these two points meet or something, where you get to a scale that you feel more comfortable engaging with. You can actually see it change in language.
No, I haven't. So I've been to Shenzhen, but not for research purposes.
Yeah,
I'm curious, how are you establishing the knowledge of what the nation
I've been reading ethnographies from various authors. Some are focused only on certain provinces, not mine, of course,
migrant workers, in contact with migrant worker housing might be a more dynamic issue. But then some of these questions really are incredibly large and questions, right? Because you could look at that particular context where you said some are there for 6 months, some are there for 2 decades. So how do you situate an intervention or a design proposal that actually works with such completely disparate scale in terms of the exposure and mission in there? From what little I know, it's also, that conditions of living are so tied into ideas of like citizenship, right? Like urban citizenship, like migrant workers are not.
They're from the province.
Right.
Yeah.
So they don't belong.
And it's very hard to go from rural to urban, the glucose system, registration system.
Right. So that this particular, like, all-encompassing policy is actually oppressing living conditions. So you then situate yourself there, like, how do I, as an urban designer, as someone working in a design proposal, address, like, spatially and perhaps more than spatially, something like this as such a broad policy thing to explore, and perhaps some of these more specific conditions, like especially in China, allow you to pin down very interesting questions.
Then here's specific examples, like exceptions, actually is very interesting. Like for instance, migrant workers that live on site, a great majority of them. And so they're actually living in urbanization, and then they have to move on site. There's there are exceptions to that, but I would say that that's generally the trend, right? I mean, the sort of ex-situ housing that you showed, that's less common. That's correct. Yes, less common. Yeah. Just unpacking all of that.
Yes. Okay, yes, we have to move on, but Brian wants to.
Just two quick things. One, just for the presentation, but also in terms of your analysis, I guess I would think a little bit about models like that appeal to you. If Shenzhen is in fact sort of a case study that has some success, as Alex was kind of describing it as kind of the contextualization, you might give us a little bit more of a sense of why or what has succeeded there. That'll help, I think, ground it a little bit. The other thing is, if you're working with narrative, I think that's actually really interesting, and because this is so chart heavy, it comes off as very quantitative, which is also fine, but I would work in narrative and memoir and sort of the ethnographic stuff more, because you actually have a lot of neat things, like you have a happiness survey of some sort, and that's actually really interesting kind of qualitative research, which may actually be more useful for illustrating your discoveries instead of more abstract representation.
Yeah, I feel like you GSDified a lot of the hard work that you did.
Yeah.
And in this case, like, it's made it harder for us to look at in a certain way. Like, I think you should un-GSDify it a little bit, and it will be more apparent, like, the work that you've actually done and what you're actually looking at. I think that's
Just like over abstracted.
yeah, like fancy graphics that look
Yeah,
they
more
really
detailed
is
design,
but like
more
we need to know how what you did to make them look good, you know, kind of thing.
Once you, to my mind, if you need to design,
Yeah.
do that right now. So you can start to think into that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that didn't happen yesterday or over there.
No.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought that's what was going on there.